Yeah, you know Umar, iFL Umar, he's finally fucked KUGAN off, hasn't he? You know, after working for him for a few years, you know, he's finally had enough of him and he's finally fucked him off, hasn't he? What do you think of that? Interesting, isn't it? You know, it's becoming a bit of a recurring theme, isn't it? You know, for people who have worked with KUGAN for a few years, you know, it normally ends badly, don't it? You know, and it normally ends up in a big bust up. You know, like with James Helder. You know, KUGAN forging James Helder's signature, you know, so he would unintentionally give up his shares in iFL. You know, so that little drug pusher Daniel L. Chapahan can move in, you know, and take half of the company. You know, and conveniently become the main sponsor of iFL. You know, after KUGAN sold out James Helder, you know, by forging his signature, you know, without him knowing, so he would give up his shares in iFL. It's a bit fucked up, innit? So it's becoming a bit too much of a coincidence now, innit? You know, people who have worked with KUGAN for a few years, you know, it normally doesn't end well, does it? So, you know, Umar, iFL Umar leaving KUGAN, you know, it's pretty much expected, isn't it? I don't know who's to blame. I'd probably point the finger at KUGAN, innit? But, you know, Umar, iFL Umar, he did have like a snidey side to him, didn't he? He did seem a bit arrogant. Remember when he posted that photo of him and Tyson Fury, saying, having a Nando's with Tyson Fury, how's your Tuesday going? You know, basically saying that he's living a better life than everybody else, you know, because he's having a Nando's with Tyson Fury, how's your Tuesday going? Do you know what I mean? You know, that kind of arrogance that he had. And like, remember when his old tweets started to resurface, you know, of him slagging off people in boxing? You know, a few years ago before he started working for iFL. You know, Tyson Fury, he wrote a tweet, you know, basically like comparing himself to Ali, you know, calling himself the greatest. And that little Umar, he replied saying, far from the greatest, you crackhead cunt. You know, and then somebody dug up his old tweets like that, you know, of him dissing people in boxing like Tyson Fury. You know, calling him a crackhead cunt. You know, a few years prior to having a Nando's with Tyson Fury, how's your Tuesday going? And like, you know, Umar, he like conveniently pretended that he didn't write those tweets. You know, he tried to make out like he didn't have any kind of recollection of writing those tweets. You know, calling Tyson Fury a crackhead cunt. But somebody dug up the old tweets, you know, and like exposed him. And like, you know, Umar as well, he was like taking the piss out of Tyson Fury, you know, and he uppercutted himself in that fight. And like, you know, Tyson is a bit sensitive, innit, a bit emotional. Like, you remember that Ellie Sockback? You remember when Tyson Fury kicked him out of a press conference, you know, because he was taking the piss out of Tyson Fury, uppercutting himself as well. You know, like Umar. So Tyson kicked this Ellie Sockback out of a press conference and said that he can't interview him again. But he seemed to have forgiven Umar, iFL Umar, you know, and went for a little Nando's with him on a Tuesday. You know, because Umar, he was like trying to make out like his old tweets were photoshopped. You know, he tried to play Mr. Innocent, didn't he? But, you know, Tyson, he kind of gave him the benefit of the doubt, you know, because he asks Tyson Fury easy questions. You know, him and fish eyes. So Tyson Fury forgave him, didn't he? You know, he don't really push Tyson Fury much in interviews, does he? And Tyson Fury likes that, don't he? He likes nice little easy questions, don't he, Tyson Fury? So then Tyson Fury took him to Nando's, you know, on a Tuesday. And those two were acting all pally-pally, you know, like a couple of little fake mates. But, you know, this little Umar is definitely a snide, isn't he? You know, and his old tweets that got dug up, you know, they kind of show that, don't they? You know, and I remember when he tried to have a go at Joshua as well, you know, in some old tweets. Because, like, somebody was, like, trying to compare Joshua, you know, to Ali. So Umar wrote a tweet saying, imagine comparing Joshua to Ali. I want to get off this planet. Cunts. But then, you know, a few years later when Umar started working for iFL and he interviewed Joshua, he started acting all pally-pally with him, didn't he? So again, he conveniently pretended that he didn't write those tweets, you know, dissing Joshua. You know, and Joshua was trying to act like Ali, which is stupid, isn't it? You know what I mean? You remember when Joshua was trying to act like Ali, you know, like trying to look down on his opponent, you know, when they're on the canvas and, you know, trying to wear a towel like Ali. Do you know what I mean? You know, trying to do that with a towel like Ali. And you know Joshua, he tried to be a poet like Ali as well. You know how Ali used to have these little shit poems. If he keeps talking jive, I'll cut it to 5. You know, that kind of dead poetry that Ali had. You know, Joshua, he had a little go at it as well, didn't he? Saying, better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in war. Do you know what I mean? You know, that corny, cringe, cheesy poetry from Joshua. It was fucking dead, wasn't it? But you know, Joshua trying to be a poet like Ali and trying to wear the towel on his head like Ali, you know, it was pathetic, wasn't it? So that's kind of what Umar was referring to, you know, when he said, imagine comparing Joshua to Ali. I want to get off this planet, cunts. But again, it kind of shows that Umar's a bit two-faced, don't he? Because, you know, when he worked for iFL, he started trying to act all pally-pally with Joshua, didn't he? You know, trying to get in there with him. So he's definitely a two-faced guy, innit, Umar? And like some old tweets got dug up of him as well, you know, of him having a go at Liverpool people, saying, the sun was right, you're murderers. Because, like, you remember that Hillsborough disaster, you know, where those football fans got crushed? You know, when the stadium collapsed? You know, at the Hillsborough football stadium in Sheffield? You know, the Sun newspaper, they tried to have a go at Liverpool people, didn't they? You know, calling them murderers and pickpocketers. You know, that's what the Sun newspaper said. You know, they were making up lies, you know, trying to diss the Liverpool people. You know, saying that these Liverpool football fans were like standing on people and crushing them. You know, while stealing their wallets. And like, you know, saying that the Liverpool football fans were like pissing on the people who were dead. And they said that, you know, the emergency service staff who were trying to help those people who were crushed. You know, the Sun newspaper, they said that the Liverpool football fans were trying to set fire to the emergency service staff. You know, trying to kill them so they couldn't help the people who were crushed to death. You know, they just made up a load of lies, man. You know, the Sun. And then they had to like put out an apology. You know, saying that they made it up and it was all fake news. And like, you know, that Umar, he tried to jump on the bandwagon, didn't he? Saying, the Sun was right, you're murderers. So he pissed off a whole city, you know, Liverpool. So, you know, the Liverpool people, they turned on him, didn't they? You know, and there's like a lot of people in boxing, you know, who are from Liverpool, you know, who would have been pissed off with Umar. You know, like Tony Bellew. You know, he refused to do any interviews with Umar, didn't he? And like, you know, that Umar, he had a go at Tony Bellew as well, you know, in his old tweets. You know, when he was getting ready to fight David Haye in the first fight. Umar wrote a tweet saying, the only good thing about this total disgrace of a fight is that the man David Haye is going to knock that cunt from pillar to post. So, you know, calling Tony Bellew a cunt, which he is, you know, it would have really pissed him off, wouldn't it? So KUGAN was fucking panicking, wasn't he? You know, worrying about Umar's well-being. And he started ringing me up, you know what I mean? You know, trying to get me involved. Saying, oh, we need to bring him back. You know, we need to do this and we need to do that. And we need to keep him in hiding and, you know, this and that. And we need to keep him out of the way, you know, until the dust settles. You know, trying to get me involved. You know what I mean? It's got nothing to do with me. Why is he trying to get me involved? It's got nothing to do with me. You know what I mean? But that's what KUGAN does, don't he? He tries to, like, you know, involve people in things that they're not involved in, you know, hoping they get fucked up as well. You know, that's what he's like, innit, KUGAN? So, you know, this Umar guy, he would have pissed off Tony Bellew as well because he was being a bit homophobic, you know, calling someone a fag. You know, and Tony Bellew, he's got a little zesty brother, hasn't he? You know, who got married to a man. And that little Tony Bellew, he seems to have embraced the whole LGBT community. So, Tony Bellew is pushing that agenda, innit? You know, and Tony Bellew, he got interviewed by this little brown guy, and Tony Bellew was like, yeah, I'm in full support of the LGBT community. I agree with gay marriage, yeah. I'm all about inclusivity. Yeah, I agree with gay marriage. I'm fully in support of the LGBT community. You know, that's what he was saying, wasn't he, Tony Bellew? But that's bullshit, man. That's just a response, you know, to him getting slandered and criticised, you know, for standing in front of that homophobic flag. Kenny Dalglish is a homosexual. So, you know, when that photo got leaked, you know, Tony Bellew, he was getting slandered and he was like facing cancellation. But, you know, because he loves being on camera, despite what he says to Cougs about not wanting to be on camera anymore. You know what I mean? He's just all over the place, isn't he, this little Tony Bellew? So he tried to like flip-flop, you know, and try and act like he's fully behind the LGBT community, you know, so he won't get cancelled. You know, not being on camera, not being seen again. You know, despite what he said to Cougs. So, you know, dissing UMAR for slagging off the Liverpool people and offending people. Calling someone a fag, you know, and discriminating. He's a fucking discriminator as well, isn't he, Tony Bellew? It's only because he got exposed that he started to flip-flop, you know, and started trying to act like he's in full support of the LGBT community. He's fake. You know, it's bullshit, isn't it? You know, he started to push that agenda, and that's why he's getting a lot more TV work. You know, on that silly reality TV program, you know, he's got that silly moustache. Looks fucking stupid, don't he? But yeah, there would have been loads of people from Liverpool, you know, in boxing who would have been pissed off with UMAR. You know, those Smith brothers. They're from Liverpool, aren't they? They would have been pissed off as well, wouldn't they? You know, with UMAR. They probably boycotted iFL as well, you know, until KUGAN got rid of UMAR. So, you know, that KUGAN, he tried to put UMAR in hiding, you know, for a few months, you know, until the dust settled. Because, like, there was a really good chance, you know, that UMAR was going to get murdered, you know, by the people of Liverpool. And, like, you know, our KUGAN's all pally-pally with Eddie Hearn, you know, sucking up to him and that. So KUGAN put in a good word for UMAR. So, you know, Eddie Hearn, he forgave UMAR, didn't he? And he, like, turned the other cheek. And he, like, still allowed him access, you know, to his shows and allowed him to interview him again. Even though Eddie Hearn, he threw the Black Critter under the bus. You know, for saying that when he beats Tommy Coyle, you know, the first interview he's going to do is with the Sun newspaper. You know, Eddie Hearn, he threw him under the bus for that. You know, even though the Black Critter's dumb and he was just saying anything. You know, he knows nothing about worldly affairs, does he, the Black Critter? But Eddie Hearn, he still threw him under the bus, you know, saying, you can't say that about the Sun newspaper, who were having a go at Liverpool people, saying that they're murderers and they're pickpocketers. So it was a bit hypocritical, wasn't it, you know, from Eddie Hearn. He's shown a bit of bias there, didn't he, you know, towards iFL, you know, because they were giving him coverage. And like, you know, back then, there wasn't that many YouTube boxing channels, you know, there was iFL, there was Michelle Hall Phelps and Radio Raheem. You know, that's about it. There was that little Rob Tebbert guy. But it was kind of limited, wasn't it? You know, those guys, you know, Hall Phelps and Radio Raheem, they're from America, aren't they? So really, there was only KUGAN and that Rob Tebbert. So Eddie Hearn, he wanted as much coverage as possible, you know, to promote his shows. So he kind of showing a bit of bias there, didn't it, Eddie Hearn, you know, towards KUGAN and iFL. And that little sneaky fucker, UMAR. You know, writing those dodgy tweets. And like KUGAN was trying to say, well, he was a kid when he wrote those tweets. He was a kid. Yeah, he was a kid. He wasn't a kid, man. He was 18. When you're 18, you're old enough to drive. You're old enough to vote. You're old enough to have a passport and go on holiday on your own. You're old enough to drink alcohol. You're old enough to fuck women. So he was old enough, man. He wasn't a kid, you know what I mean? That's just an excuse from KUGAN. You know, trying to defend his little employee. But it's kind of come full circle on KUGAN, hasn't it? And they've had a big bust up. And UMAR's left. You know, it's good to see, innit? You know what I mean? But this little UMAR is definitely a snide, innit? So it's quite interesting to see what UMAR will do next. I think he should collab with James Helder, you know, who KUGAN sold out. And they can both form like a coalition, you know, where they both diss KUGAN in videos. Because they probably both got like stories, you know, about KUGAN cheating on his baby mama. So they could do videos, you know, rinsing him, you know, stitching him up after they both fell out with him. So I think they should do that, but I don't think James would trust UMAR, you know, because of his snidey past, his snidey tweets. Like, you remember when Kell Brook boxed the Skype wanker? You know, years and years before that fight happened. You know, it was dragging on, wasn't it? It was taking time. There was like long, boring talks, you know, about that fight happening. You know, and it kind of seemed like it wouldn't ever happen. So, you know, UMAR, he was like dissing Kell Brook as well, you know, in his old tweet saying, listen, you stupid cunt, take the 70-30 split. Best thing you'll ever earn. And it's a winnable fight for you. Mandatory avoider. So it's kind of like UMAR was saying that Kell Brook was avoiding the Skype wanker. Do you know what I mean? You know, having a go at Kell Brook. You know, calling him a stupid cunt. You know, even though Kell fucked up the Skype wanker a few years later, didn't he? But, you know, dissing Kell Brook a few years earlier, you know, calling him a stupid cunt. But then, you know, a few years later, he went to the Ingle gym, you know, and started acting all pally-pally with Kell Brook. you know, laughing and joking with him and putting on a load of little fake smiles and that. So again, it kind of shows that he's a bit two-faced, don't it? He was a bit sneaky, wasn't he? So I don't really know if it is KUGAN's fault, you know, why he left. So I tried to do a bit of research into it, and you know, UMAR's ex-girlfriend, I managed to get in touch with her, you know, on the internet. You know, to try and find out what kind of a person he is, because we only really know him from boxing, don't we? You know, from his boxing interviews. But you know her, she knows him, don't she? She was with him for years and years, you know, before he started working for iFL. So I sent her a message on Instagram, you know, to try and like find out what kind of a person he really is. And she was telling me that, you know, a few years ago, when they were together, she said that UMAR got her pregnant. But like, you know, because he didn't want the kid, he told her to get an abortion. But like, she wasn't really into the idea, you know, of getting an abortion. Because like, you know, her parents, they're religious, you know, they're Christians. And like, you know, religious people, they look at abortions as being murder. So she wasn't really into the idea, you know, of getting an abortion. But she said UMAR, he like pressured her into getting an abortion. You know, really put the pressure on her to get rid of the kid. You know, and she said that he used to beat the fuck out of her. You know, and stuff like that. So you know that on top of him having to go at Liverpool people, calling them murderers and pickpocketers and scum. You know, and now she's coming out saying that he beat the fuck out of her. You know, and forced her into an abortion. You know, it's not looking good for him at all, is it? So, you know, iFL, you know, now UMAR, iFL, UMAR's gone. It's kind of dead now, isn't it? It's kind of over for iFL, isn't it? You know, at first, I used to watch iFL every day. I used to really look forward to watching their interviews, you know, their content. I really enjoyed it. I used to really look forward to watching their content, man. I used to love watching their interviews. You know, at first when it was that James Helder and KUGAN, you know, even when James Helder left, you know, and that little UMAR, iFL UMAR joined, there was still something there, you know, like seeing how he was acting with women. You know, showing us all how well he was doing sexually. You know, showing off these nice, fancy white women. You know, it was good to see, wasn't it? It was entertaining. It was enjoyable stuff, man. You know, UMAR, iFL UMAR, showing off these nice white women that he was fucking. You know, it's good to see, wasn't it? So, you know, UMAR, he kind of contributed to iFL as well. But, you know, as time went by, you know, KUGAN, he started hiring a load of other little fuckers. But they didn't have that appeal, you know what I mean? They didn't have that intrigue, you know, that UMAR had. You know what I mean? They weren't interesting. You know, that little Scottish fucker, Andrew McCart. He's a bit irritating, isn't he? You know, when he does the interviews, I kind of switch off. You know, when I kind of realise it's him doing the interviews, I just fucking kind of lose interest, you know, and switch off. You know, and then KUGAN, he like took on a load of other little fuckers, and they were just like clueless as well, weren't they? You know, they were running around like headless chickens, you know what I mean? They didn't have a clue, did they? And it kind of like diluted the brand. You know, it kind of fucked up the channel. You know, and brought down the quality level of the channel. KUGAN just hired anybody, you know, to do his dirty work for him. So he wouldn't have to go to shows, you know, so he could just fucking get drunk and just fuck a load of women, you know, in Essex. So, you know, KUGAN, he kind of lost that edge, you know, that consistency and that discipline, you know, and he just gave these jobs, you know, to these fucking little idiots who he hired, you know, to do his dirty work for him. You know, we're just diluting the channel. So iFL now, it's just kind of dead, innit? I can't see any way back for them at all, man. But yeah, it is a bit sad, innit, what's happened to iFL. You just kind of feel like the end of an era, you know, especially now UMAR's left. I remember KUGAN driving up and down the motorway, you know, with Eddie Earn, you know, getting involved in banter. You know, it was fun to see, wasn't it? You know, seeing Eddie Earn and fucking KUGAN, you know, up and down the motorway, you know, having banter. It was quite good, wasn't it? It was fun, man. It was happy times, man. It was good to see. But it's like KUGAN's role has been taken over by that Parsons. You know, that weird looking fucker. He looks a bit weird, don't he, that Parsons? But I think he's kind of taken over Kugan's banterous role, you know, with Eddie Hearn. And Kugan, you know, he's a bit worried, isn't he? But I think that Parsons, I think he tries a bit too hard, you know, to be banterous with Eddie Hearn. It's like he's forcing it, you know what I mean? You know, and like he'll say, Eddie, why are you wearing that hoodie with those jeans? You know what I mean? Eddie, why are you wearing those jeans with those shoes? You know what I mean? It's like he's trying hard to be banterous, you know what I mean? You know, to try and fucking be interesting and that. It kind of comes across as a bit corny, a bit fake, don't it? So, you know, now he's trying to get in there with that Ed Sheeran, innit? Who's a weird looking fucker as well. He's trying to get in that little circle, innit? Parsons. He was trying to have a bit of banter, you know, with that Ed Sheeran, you know, trying to talk about his clothes as well. You know, like he does with Eddie Hearn. You know, like he looks Eddie Hearn up and down, you know, in the interview, you know, desperately trying to find something to criticize Eddie Hearn about. You know, to try and make the interview really banterous. That's what he tries to do, don't he, that little Parsons. He's desperately trying to find a fault, you know, with Eddie Hearn's clothes. So he can like bring it up in the interview, you know, to try and be banterous. You know, I think he's trying a bit too hard. So Parsons. Yeah, he's trying to become a fucking superstar, isn't he? You know, trying to talk to Ed Sheeran and that. You can't blame him though. He's got a high status level, you know, because he's a celebrity. You know, this little Ed Sheeran. So even though he looks a bit fucked up, you know, he can get some nice pussy, can't he? And that's what that little Charlie Parsons is trying to do, isn't he? You know, he's trying to mingle, you know, with the big names, you know, trying to step up sexually. And you can't blame him, man. He's trying to step up, you know, like Ed Sheeran. You know, this little Ed Sheeran, he went to a university, you know, in England. And there was a load of fucking nice white women, you know, all over him. You know, some little groupies. You know, even though he looks fucked up, you know, he can still, like, attract nice white women. So that's what that little Parsons is trying to do, innit? He's trying to step his sexual game up. And you can't blame him, man. Just do what you have to do, innit? Pussy's pussy, end of the day, but sometimes I think it just kind of comes across as corny. You know, and a bit cringe and a bit forced. You know, the banter with Eddie Hearn. Good luck to him, man. Good luck to him. Pussy's pussy, like I say, end of the day. KUGAN, he's had his fair share of pussy on it, so he might have just got it out of his system, KUGAN, and he's like lost that hunger, you know, that desire. The novelty might have wore off, you know, the sexual novelty. It might have wore off, man, because you don't matter how much pussy you get. Eventually, he's going to get a bit stale, a bit bored of it, so he might have just fucking thought, fuck it, and he's lost that hunger. So he just hired a load of little fuckers to run around, you know, doing his little dirty work and that. I don't know, there's a few different theories, but iFL definitely kind of fell off a bit, haven't they? I don't know what happened to KUGAN. I think when the fucking FBI raided him, you know, and fucking confiscated a lot of his cash, you know, that he was laundering, I think that shook him up, you know, and just fucking made him a bit more serious in life. Me having a go at him over the years, you know, about his bent legs, that probably didn't help. I've kind of ripped into him. I think he really was mentally fucked up from that. Because he used to ring me in it and say, oh, can you stop having a go at me? And I used to say, nah. Nah. It's how it is, isn't it? It's just how it is, man. But we'll see if he can recover, you know, with the departure of UMAR. It's going to be a long road back in it for KUGAN and iFL. You know KUGAN, yeah? He tried to like breathe some life into iFL, you know, by doing podcasts. You know, he interviewed the Black Quitter the other day, you know, in a podcast. And it's like, it's just the same questions all the time, man, you know what I mean? What's your earliest memory of boxing? What are your everyday battles? You know what I mean? It's just the same questions all the time, man. KUGAN needs to watch Joe Rogan, you know, to try and find out how to ask interesting questions, you know, and just fucking find out about how to have a variety of different topics, you know, to talk about in podcasts. Because KUGAN, he just asks the same questions every single podcast, you know what I mean? And it's no good, is it? It's no good, man. Well, yeah, we'll see anyway. We'll see what happens to iFL, you know what I mean? We'll see if this is the end of an era, you know, with the departure of UMAR. See how it goes, innit? But I'm going to wrap this up, you know. Thanks for tuning in again, yeah. Thanks for that.